if I had to do an interview right now, I can do it.
What was your preparation to get into Meta as a software engineer? What do you think really changes when you switch from a period of being a software engineer to mid level to, say, a senior level position? So, welcome to the Mayank Show podcast, Pedro. For those who do not know Pedro, guys, Pedro is a software engineer at Meta who has had a lot of experience already in the software engineering space, specifically in iOS. But I think he knows a lot of other things as well, which he would be sharing today in this episode. So, without any further ado, I would just jump right into the conversation with Pedro. So, welcome to the podcast once again, Pedro. And would you like to introduce
Thanks,
yourself
man.
to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mike, for this opportunity. First off, my real name is Pedro Rojas, but you can call me Pete. This is the name that I use for friends and internet. So, I've been working in this software industry for already more than 11 years. So I studied computer science in my university in Mexico. I'm from Mexico, by the way. I recently moved to US because, like you mentioned, I'm currently working at Meta, and I also work in other companies collaborate with other companies in the Bay Area, like HP, for example, which is like the born of they founded the Silicon Valley in some way. Um, but I guess already most of my career has been related to iOS stuff. I was talking to you that it was like a passion to me to that technology, like you, like maybe others that they feel like Apple is like uh, developing this in their own way, but it's like a jewelry. I don't know. Everything that they do is like a jewelry, but also the technology is like they care a lot. They take care of what they are doing. And also, yeah, I started working, I guess, in iOS in 2016. Um, and since then, I've been working in many projects related to many topics. Um, and also, yeah, we'll talk more about later. But I also love teaching, and that's one of the reason I later decided to start a YouTube channel and share what I'm learning, because that's the best thing to do when you want to ensure that you're learning something. Teach it to others. So, yeah, and here we am.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Pit. What we'll do in this episode today, we will just dig deeper into all the different roles that you have been through in past few years, because I
Mhm.
think you have had a great journey so far. I believe that it would be even much more greater than this going ahead. But I have seen your growth when we were having this conversation regarding your professional journey so far. You have been into junior roles and you moved to the senior role, then you have been into the managerial role as well, and then you made a switch again to the engineering role at Meta. So let's talk about how did you get into the technology space as a software engineer, and what were the initial technologies you played around with, and what made you amazed that you got started with that?
Sure. Yeah, I was also talking to you a few moments ago that I studied computer science, and in my university there was professor that was promoting students to work with some projects at HP, at HP Labs in Palo Alto. Uh, but you will have to do a lot of work. You be your grades should be excellent to be there. So because this professor was super strict, and yeah, I totally understand why, right? So because those projects were not like homework, right? They were like real projects that wants to generate revenue, profit, right? So I decided I saw the opportunity and I said, okay, I don't know why, but I have to be there. So at that time, I was just thinking that, and I have no idea what to do. But I guess I moved forward, and over time, I got the opportunity from this professor to participate in one of those projects. And I guess at the time in 2012, I was using things like Java, uh, the .NET technology, SQL Server, SQL Server. I mean, it's like most people call it here. Yeah, most related to Microsoft technologies. I used to use Windows, of course, right? Um, but actually, during those moments, I also I was in US, and I decided, oh, okay, I'm near to an Apple store. I'm really have the curiosity to learn more about the Apple ecosystem and how they develop apps, because at that time in 2012 it was like the boom of apps, right? Everyone wants to get their app, right?
True.
And well, I decided to purchase the cheapest MacBook available at that time. And yeah, I that was the first moment when I actually took serious to start learning iOS. But I move it. I don't leave it like the serious until more later on. But yeah, during those times were more related to many things. Not specifically. I can not even say that I was a full stack, because I was too junior at the time. But basically executing what other researchers or other people required from me. Was like, oh, we need to adapt this web application. Okay, let's do it. Oh, we need to connect with this uh, database and get some data. Okay, so it was like a mix of everything, but it was a cool experience. I got some friends uh, from there, so yeah, was like the beginning of my career.
Awesome, awesome. So, do you have any bias for the technologies that you have used so far? With like you have been into .NET, like right, and you said that you have used Java, you have used
Hmm.
SQL servers and whatnot. So then you got into iOS eventually.
Hmm.
So many people I meet generally whenever I go to any meetups, and they always used to ask questions about iOS versus this, iOS versus that. So does that thing is similar in your case as well? Do you also feel the same, or do you think of technologies as something which only helps you to achieve a certain objective?
um, During that time, I guess yes, it was like, well, curiously, I I guess in 2010 and before, I was a Apple hater. Yeah, even unbelievable. um, and but I guess, yeah, it was like later I think like, okay, this iOS is better than Android. Changed my mind. Blah blah blah. I mean, over time, it's like I don't really care about that. I don't put so much effort on those things. I guess at this point, also the technologies are pretty similar, no matter what is the OS, no matter what is
Right.
the company developing. So there is already the gap between those is minimal. And no, I guess, yeah, Redis, like, it's not it's not a way of using Swift, for example, to make to solve a problem just because using Swift. It's because um well, first is the tool we love, right? But the thing,
Yeah.
it's also considering it is the best approach for that, because, well, some people will kill me just for saying that, because uh but there are some other situations where maybe web application is enough for what you're doing or what you need to
Right.
do, instead of
Right.
wasting resources to developing something, for example, in iOS and Android or other platforms, right?
Right.
It's like, what is the best at that time to you? Maybe that's
True.
okay, maybe not, maybe you need to move forward to another technology, but it's like analyzing objectively what is the best for you. So regardless
Makes sense.
of the syntax of the architecture, one of the reasons why, well, some big tech, for example, is still using Objective C, it's not because they
Yeah.
hate Swift, right? It's because
Hmm.
a business decision. I mean, migrating to
Right.
to a new technology is extremely expensive, and if you have something
True.
already there that is working, don't touch it, right? But it is
Right.
like it is, right? So, and I also got a friend that told me sometimes that the market or the developers got crazy because they want to use the latest update already in their code base. But
Right.
sometimes
Right.
that's not possible. But also that's not smart, right? Because or I will just give you an example. Right now, I'm doing a TCA series, and some people are complaining a lot because I'm not using the latest syntax provided by this framework. Uh,
Right.
but I said, okay, I totally understand that. I'm doing my best because my time is limited. But uh, at the same time, the architecture that I'm exploring is the same, regardless of the syntax. You should not
Yes.
focus on the syntax. You should focus on the architecture. And if the
On them.
syntax is quite different, I guess you're smart enough to connect the dots to, okay, I will do this in my own with my own syntax, but the logic
Right.
is still the same, right? It's like putting this in perspective is what you need to do for everything, not just for coding
True.
or everything. You need to put things in objectively always, and instead of just judging or saying that this is good or bad just because you think that that's not a good thing, in my opinion, to move forward with things.
That makes sense. I
Yeah.
completely agree to that. Also, like, what is the ideal roadmap to become a software engineer in today's time? If we do not talk about any specific technology to be like, in consideration, what would you say that this is the roadmap to become a good software engineer?
um well, that will depends first, I guess, what will you like to do. But let's say that you don't know yet. You don't know if you want to be a mobile developer or a web developer, full stack, whatever, right? I guess i guess no matter where time of your career you are, I think one of the most important things is developing the soft skills, because the soft skills will be with you forever and will be are not attached to something that will be deprecated later, right? Technology will be deprecated eventually. So right now, for example, we are moving in iOS from UIKit to SwiftUI, but we know later in a few years maybe SwiftUI it's obsolete already. We need to move to another thing, right? That will happen. Yeah. uh, Maybe you don't think that will happen, but who knows, right? So
True.
I guess I have this formula for most people. I guess skill plus knowledge will give you some opportunities, but if you multiply that for your attitude, that will exponentially help you to make things better. So what I'm trying to say is that maybe I know a lot of people that they work from other uh, careers, like for example lawyers or being in the medicine. They move to the software industry. They don't have any background on computer science or of coding. How they made it? How they made it that transition? Well, um, one of the things you could start is maybe starting with some basic tutorials about how, I don't know, a project that you maybe are interested, or something that I always say to people: if you have an idea in mind, try to do it. Maybe it's too ambitious, but okay, try to split it into something smaller and try to do the MVP of the MVP. But if you don't have any idea, that's not excuse to you to do that. You can just copy. I don't know. I would like to do a Twitter application. I would like to do a YouTube application. Maybe you won't do the whole application, but you maybe will
True.
do a few of the things, right? How to display a video, how to do this, how to manage an application, the dependencies, etc. I mean, it will be an infinite set of topics to talk. But
Right.
I guess if you learn from your perspective instead of I mean, watching videos or tutorials, it's okay, it's good, right?
Yeah.
But in words of Paul Hudson, don't spend so much time, preparing your pencil. Start drawing. right? Just
True.
take action, right? Maybe you will do it really bad. I'm pretty sure about that. But over time, over the years, you will become a better engineer and stronger engineer, regardless uh, of the technology you're using. That will be my
Right.
topic. Stop fearing and keep moving. It's that simple.
Nice, nice. Even when you were talking about, starting off with building a clone of a certain application which already exists, I think
Mhm.
they can even break it down into pieces in the way that they can try to approach it in this way. Suppose you want to stream a video which works
Mhm.
like YouTube, right?
Yeah.
In that particular approach, they can learn how streaming a video as a concept works behind the scene.
Mhm.
And even if you learn 50% of how it works, you would be able to clear out a lot of doubts that would be there in your mind about how
Yeah.
streaming actually works, right?
Yeah.
So I completely agree to that part. Also, like, how should somebody say that now I am a software engineer, or say I am job ready? So what should be their, like, what should be a specific parameter based on that somebody would judge them that, okay, now you are a job ready software engineer, and now you can apply for roles.
Um, I mean, that's also um, open question. I, I guess my advice for that is like you will never be ready enough. That's one thing because that will depend where is the company you're applying. If you're applying for, I don't know, X, Y, maybe you are ready for that. Maybe they look your profile, your skills are good for those companies. But if you apply for Google, for example, maybe that's another story because they require an even more experience, more with algorithms, etc. So I guess you could calibrate that, um, applying right away and take note about the mistakes you made. It's obvious when, I mean, sometimes the companies could provide you uh, feedback, but some others won't do that. But could be obvious to you when if you don't know something, and that's something. That's something clever just to say. Don't try to you know um, mm, lie in an interview. If you don't know something, you don't know about a technology, or you're not enough familiar with that, just say it. Honesty is one of the most valuable things in the world. So if someone is, detecting that you are lying, because it's really, believe me, I've been an engineering manager, and I know when people is lying me. Many people is trying to just bluffing me, right? And it's really easy to detect that and kill you, right? Not literally, but asking another question from your comment, and you won't have any answer for that, and then you will be like a clown, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's just touching. Of course, I'm not saying that if you don't have absolutely zero experience, you don't know even how to open an IDE. Of course, you need to do a few things, right? But I will say try it. Uh, Take a look to a few things. Read. I don't know how what is more or less a good structure for starting a project. Let's say
Right.
if we are talking about iOS, so okay, let's say we use Xcode, but how to manage an Xcode project? Should I create a folder with view controllers, or would
Yeah.
it be better if I create uh, feature by feature, for example,
Hmm.
profile products instead of just a bunch of view controllers in a folder? I mean, what is the
Hmm.
best approach, right? And and
Hmm.
and for that, take action, and then go right away and be honest. Let's say, hey, I'm still learning. I'm applying. Of course, don't apply for a senior position if you don't have the skills, right? But if there is
Makes
an
sense.
entry level or junior position, okay, I'm starting, I'm trying to do my best. If you do that, yeah, probably they will say, I'm sorry, we're not looking for someone like you at this moment. But sometimes I've been in some situations where this person doesn't have enough hard skills, but I like the attitude. He's not afraid of doing things. I guess this person has potential. So let's train it. Let's give it some time to prepare, and then let's move on. Believe me, it's that
Awesome.
that's the key. But you need
Right.
to go up front and say and apply. That's a if you keep doing that, even when you have a job, and
Right.
keeping the skills or habits of interviewing, that will give you confidence and also will give you a perspective of what is the market looking for. That's what
Right.
the thing could guide you
Right.
automatically. Where are your weak points and what to do? What are the new technologies coming? So if there are already requesting Swift UI, for example, okay,
Hmm.
maybe that's a good time to start learning more about Swift UI instead of UI Kit. If not, okay, I could still do it. But if I would get more opportunities with UI Kit, okay, I will prepare even more with UI Kit. So it's kind of how I consider you could calibrate that better.
Nice, nice. And once somebody join a certain company as a software engineer, I think the next thing that comes to their roadmap in terms of seeing their career going ahead is becoming a senior software engineer, right? Or maybe a
Mhm,
mid-level software engineer. So how has that experience been for you personally? How did you learn about that? How did you climb that ladder of seniority? And
mhm,
what do you think really changes when you switch from a period of being a software engineer to mid level to say a senior level position? I think there is a lot to look into. If we do not think about the roles itself, I think there is a deeper layer in beyond those roles, which
mhm,
sometimes get ignored. I have met, not really met, but I have seen a lot of people who are at senior positions, but if we do not go with their numbers of experience, the quality of knowledge or the quality of experience they have that they can bring on the table is much lower than a mid-level software engineer. So
mhm.
what do you think about this particular take? Like, how should somebody climb, or how have you climbed the seniority level, and how do you look at it from the top?
Right. Again, we have another uh, ambiguous topic because I mean, being a senior in X company could be totally different from being a senior in Y company. Okay, but I would try to be, you know, objective, right?
But there
And
has to be some core fundamentals or principles that has to be followed in every company, be it any position, right? If you
Mhm,
have a senior position at say X company and a senior position at Y company, both of these
mhm.
guys must be having something in common. So what is that common thing according to you, and why is it important?
Um, well, one of the things I guess is some leadership to and having some confidence talking with people mm, outside of your core team. What I'm trying to say is, for example, or something called like X cross functional. Sorry, when you need to talk with the designer, when you need to talk with the PM, uh, when you're a junior, you're expecting things that I mean someone will figure out things for you, right? And then later you will receive, okay, here's a ticket for you. This is what we need to do, right? There are the tasks. This is the description of the ticket. Go for it, right? Sometimes when people see you as a senior, you are the guy that maybe you need to find the gaps. The This is the rule. The more seniority you got, the more ambiguity you will have to fight and figure out by yourself, right? um of course you are in a team, you don't have to do everything 100%, but in the engineering perspective, you should be capable to contribute to that, right? So, for example, just an example, um, if the designer is proposing a custom back button in iOS, right? But you have experience already that um, if you remove the chevron icon, for example, that will confuse the users instead of telling that they can go back. And that button, custom button, is just like it's like a model button, or what is exactly that? But for the designer, it's like it's looking okay. But should you be able to share that? Hey, uh, according to the guidelines or according to this experience, I guess this will be problematic for the user. So blah blah blah, right? So um, try to do to propose that. Maybe at the end, PM or others could say, let's move forward and let's see if that happened. But as okay, uh, you are able to open, you are able to give your thoughts about things, right? Normally when people is junior, I'm not saying that juniors cannot talk, but someone sometimes they don't have enough confidence to to talk about the specific things. Or for example, some well, the seniors could be more confidence to um, navigate through large piece of code, or understand an architecture perspective. That's something important. And when someone is junior, it's really confusing to see a bunch of boxes around, and you don't understand what is the logic connected, right? But over time, I guess one of the strong signals of a senior position for someone is the ability to understand those designs, but also proposing some new designs. So if you need to develop a new feature, you probably will need to propose how the things will be connected, right? And do it in a holistic way to that responsibilities should be okay, right? And that those responsibilities will be and I mean, not being problematic later. um, so I guess also the ability to teaching others, I mean, mentoring people, that's a good signal, because when you are a senior, you have already enough X years of experience, regardless of being X number, right? I mean, in terms of being involved in some decisions, technical decisions, and other and product decisions. You could also transfer that knowledge to other younger members in the team, and they could see you, has okay, if I had something to do, I could ask this person, right? And essentially, when the senior people, senior engineers, are someone in where the team could trust, right? If this person is saying something, eventually, well, their reputation will be okay. We maybe consider that what this person is saying, because yeah, he knows more than the others, technically speaking. So there are some kind of the guidelines that I could share with about it. I don't know, what do you think, Mayank?
I completely agree on that particular front. I think when you were talking about having this structure in mind, that you do not just take decision based on what discussion is going on, but you also propose something from your end.
Mhm.
I think that's very crucial when you become a senior engineer. Also, I think that is something which cannot be learned online, or that cannot be learned, by some resource. You have to learn it by having the real experience, right? By
Mhm. Mhm.
actually grinding the way out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think additionally, if I have to say something, then you have to grind that well, that you know the shit, like why I am saying so, because you have
Yeah.
tried multiple permutations, combinations, and that you have figured out. Then you have figured out this works in this particular case and this doesn't work. These both of these cases have certain trade-offs, but according to this situation, this is my proposal.
Yeah. I will add one more thing. A
Sure.
senior engineer is someone that has have failed a lot, but a
Yeah.
lot. That's one of the
True.
things. I mean, making mistakes is part of becoming an engineer and senior engineer. No,
100%.
that's a rule, no matter where you are. So
Right.
so don't be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes
Right.
will becoming an engineer, a better engineer eventually.
Yes.
So
Yes. I think
and
that's what we are calling learning from experience. If you haven't
exactly,
tried enough, if you haven't failed enough, then that's a very like dangerous
yeah,
situation for you as a
yeah,
senior, right?
exactly,
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Also, I think when you were in your senior role, you just have to tell me that I'm not sure. When you were in the senior role, were you also responsible to make the hiring decisions for the team, or does that does it happen in like in your scenario with all
yeah.
the companies that you have worked with? So what was your criteria of assessing someone when somebody used to appear for an interview? As an interviewer, I would say, what was your approach to take things forward?
Okay, I've been in both the scenarios. Like I said, I've been well software engineer, but also I've been manager. So I've been in both perspectives of when to decide when someone should be a thumbs up or thumbs down. Um, in terms of the engineering perspective, um, well, there are some companies where they um, uh, you know give you a set of coding algorithms to provide to the interviewer to the interview to the candidate, sorry. um, uh, Most of the time I haven't done that. In fact, I haven't had the opportunity to interview at Meta yet. um, but most of the time has been well, in two sets, one technically and one I mean with theoretical questions, and the other with practical, right? So maybe making part of an application. So for the questions, technical questions, uh, I uh, at the beginning I started, asking questions like, what is a class, what is an object, what is a blah 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 blah. I don't really care about that. I start doing this, and maybe this is a spoiler if you're a candidate and I will interview you. Well,
I think
so
that's
for
great for
example,
them then.
one of the questions I always ask, how do you feel? Do you feel a junior, a mid, or senior engineer? That's a tricky question because it's like you are signing a contract, and then after
True.
signing that contract, I will ask you a few more questions or less, and I will expect a deeper answer instead of
Makes
just a
sense.
lie, like, right. But I have to do it because some people could have, and they need to calibrate the expectations, right? So one of the questions is like, okay, have you have you been working with Swift? Yeah. How many years? I don't know, 4 years. Okay, let's say 4 years. So okay, tell me 5 things that you could do with Swift or you have done with Swift in the past. Oh, okay. I've been using, I don't know, concurrency with blah blah blah. So I mean, you start with
Right.
that, and then okay, I will ask you, okay, you use concurrency. What kind of framework? Oh, Grand Central Dispatch. Okay, could you tell me this about Grand Central Dispatch, or how do you implement a semaphore or things like that? So I will ask questions on front of what you are answering me. Okay, that's just an example. I always also try to ask specifically about projects. So technically speaking, what you did there? Oh, okay, I implemented the user interface um, with UI key programmatically. Okay, could you tell me then how did you establish, I don't know, the rules to set something, uh, and then uh, if if the person is telling me more and more about what uh, he or she is doing, it's a signal to me that okay, this person knows exactly what is telling me, and uh, it, he has more context of how to implement this, or an architecture, or good patterns, etc. So normally we do this with 2 or 3 people, could be at the same time or in separated sessions, um, just to give some perspective. Sometimes I ask more about the code, the language, etc. In general. Some others ask more about tools that they used to do in in their projects, etc. And at the end, there are others from the engineer perspective about how did you solve conflicts, how did you manage situations where someone is not agree with you, right? Are you just going to get angry, or you will do something about it? So um, that combination of things, it's like, we could hire this person, and normally the final, I mean, the deal breaker is the soft skills. If someone is not capable to work in team, has a team, probably, no matter if he's strong enough technically, probably will be a no, right? And most of the time, although the circumstances, because we require a senior or higher level position, um, will be okay, or we can do a second round of another round of interviews, just to clarify if maybe it was just the nervous of the situation, or in fact this person needs more preparation. If he needs more preparation, what can we do? Can we offer a training here, or we need to ask him or ask her to go back in X months, right? So at the end, still subjective, yeah, because there's no other way to prove what you can do. But something that, again, could help you a lot is doing side projects, or expand your horizons, because if you are just working in in your job, okay, you have just that line, right? But if you have side projects, I'm not saying that you should absolutely do this, but it's just uh, an advice for you to expand your perspective. You could face other kind of things, because maybe at your job you don't need, I don't know, to take care of push notifications, just for say something. You don't have to deal with animations, right? But if you learn that just for your own fun, you could have that perspective. You don't need to be expert, but you already know that. And you could be maybe strong in some areas of the development, and that it's like your vertical. So it's like, call it a vertical um, to advantage, to prove your value as an engineer, right? um, but that's kind of the way how I could decide if someone is I mean, higher or not higher in my experience.
Awesome, awesome. I think that's a very detailed and very analytical process, because when you're saying that you go with this approach of asking somebody that where do you see yourself in terms of, say,
Mhm.
level of engineering, you ask like mid-level, senior, what, then they are themselves deciding that where this interview is heading towards, right?
Mhm.
And that they can even use this approach as an advantage. And
Mhm.
if they go, like if you try to fool the interviewer, then it would be like going to be a hell for them, right? I think
Yeah.
I have been very good with this approach. When interviewer asks you that what is this, and then you answer it, and you know that whatever I'm going to answer now, my next question will be decided based on that.
Yeah.
So you can play around with this very well if you are conscious about how that interview is going on at that moment.
Hmm.
Though in many situations people are quite nervous and they do not really care about how is it going, because they are only focusing on the problem that have been asked to them. But
Hmm.
I think you have given a great insight to all those who are preparing. They would be learning a lot from this one. Also,
Yeah.
like, this is very technical towards iOS bit. So what are the 4 topics you believe any iOS developer should know if they want to call themselves a iOS engineer, and if they want to make it to an interview round? And if they are not really sure about these 4 topics, these 4 core topics, then they should better prepare it first and then apply.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have those topics, I guess. I don't know if they are four, but I will try to just put it out my mind. Um, but this is those are things that I always need to refresh before an interview, right? Because I'm pretty sure that people will ask that. One is, of course, the uses of either UI kit or Swift UI, right? Um, I won't be super stressful of, oh, I need to know every detail of what is a how a VStack work under the hood. No, 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 no. Um, but yeah, I mean, at least one of those will be enough for you to be confident, right? To move forward with one of those. Although I would recommend to at least understand how the clarity framework works, right? Because even if you're using UIKit, most companies are moving to the clarity uh, perspectives already, right? And they try to manage how an state a global state will work, right? So again, Swift UI is made by that, but it's regardless of that, you could explore other kind of approaches. I know that most people will use the view model perspective, right? Architecture, um, but okay, if that's what you feel more confident, that's okay, but I will suggest at least other two variants of architectures. Let's say, for example, oh, you are working with iOS. Okay, why not exploring Redux like application architectures? Let's say, for example, TCA would be one of those. Okay, maybe I'm not an expert, but I know that exists. And what about maybe, well, I don't know, another one right now? Mobius is kind of similar, but just to put some perspective, just to if someone asks you why you are using MBBM instead of others, you could answer confident. It's because I don't know, because it's simpler, it's faster, because maybe the requirement of what I'm doing is this what is need. I don't need something more complex. That's okay. But if you said because it's the only thing I know, that's a different answer. You know what I mean? That's one thing. So architectures is in general a good topic to discuss. Um, so another is like databases storage, right? So it's mandatory that someone will ask you sometimes about uh, between core data, between realm, what else, well, even uh, good practices of maybe user defaults, etc. So
Would
or
you
even
care if somebody is not really into Realm and they are only talking about core data? Would you like question them based on that? That why haven't you used Realm yet, or would you only assess that, okay, I think core data is enough, and if you are able to answer that well, then I should be good.
um I mean, depending. It depends of if the project it's heavily requiring someone expert or with
Makes sense.
some knowledge of databases. But in general, I mean, those concepts are things that are really good to know, right? And or let's
True.
understand if you're choosing core data over Realm, I will be curious about why, right? Why
Why?
you're
Yeah.
just
Why?
know the difference, right?
Right.
Or if or also if the problem is too simple and you want to introduce core data, it's like, why, right? I
Why?
would like to know why are you doing
True.
this, right?
Why
Because
would you go
it's
with the complex solution for a
ex-
problem that could have been solved with a simpler manner? Yeah.
exactly, yeah. That's one thing. Just to be aware of the uh, storage solutions, and not and maybe just analyze. There are, I mean, you could make a list. That there are online
Right.
a few lists of the ways to persist data in iOS, because it's important, from the basics, for which is user defaults, until the more complex one with SQLite or other things.
Right.
Um, other I'm just trying to remember.
Take your time.
Um, yeah, I'm not sure if it's yeah, yeah. I know. I know one really important, not theoretically, but practically, about the how to split the responsibilities. I guess it's attached to kind of the uh, um, the architectures, but it is important to you. Don't push too hard if someone is asking to make an application, and maybe at the beginning you are putting a lot of logic in a place where it's supposed not to be there, right? But
Okay.
understand that maybe you will have to refactor a few things, and what will be a strategy to do this, right? So
Okay.
if normally people uh, could split things in, for example, persistency, network, I don't know, view layer, etc. So try just to uh, visualize what will be your strategy to
Achieve
develop the
that.
project. Exactly. Yeah, that
Okay.
will be good. Maybe it's not absolutely necessary,
So
but
if you do
yeah.
not mind, should I call it system design? Like, to be more precise with the terminology, would you call it system design, since it's talking about the high level perspective of how do you look at this particular problem? Like, how would you develop this particular feature or say product? Then you
Mhm.
have to figure out the whole roadmap to do so, like the blueprint. How would you be going about it? I mean, that's what you mean, right?
Mm, yeah. Well, I'm not specifically talking about a system design interview, because that will
Yeah,
depend of the company. But if you
true.
know that you will face system design, okay, prepare for that, right? But if
Right.
not, at least understand the basics of how would you organize your application, right? How,
Okay.
what will be the layers according to the um, architecture you're gonna choose.
Yeah.
Um, I, I guess also one of the common questions is about the dependencies, how to manage
Yes.
the dependencies. That's an and that could be, I mean, from packages like Cocoa Pods or Swift Package Manage itself, onto to internally in the code. How would you call that dependency, right?
Yeah.
And that will bring you another topic. How would you test that? Testing is
Yes.
important.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, if you're going to introduce a direct call for user default, for example, maybe that won't be a good approach to for testing purposes, right? So, how would you then keep that piece of code ready for testing? Because there are some implications to just leaving a singleton there, right?
Sorry to
And
interrupt, but I think
yep,
I again have an input on that. I think
yep,
what you saying on that particular context is knowing the solid principles, right? So if you are well aware about following these solid principles, then you would know that when I should use singleton and why my code should be that isolated that I could test it easily. Uh,
yeah.
is it?
I I was about to mention that, but
Okay.
yeah, so solid is good, but
Yes.
don't take it too serious in
Yeah.
memorize the concept. That's not a
Makes
point,
sense. Makes
because
sense.
I mean I remember some other teammates in interviews asking that, oh, tell me about the solid principles. And if they don't know the principles, okay, it's a no, it's a rejected.
I
um,
see.
but it's not because we need to understand the concept. I don't even remember, the full. I'm sorry, the full meanings of every letter, right? But the point is that I at least understand in practice, what does it mean? For example, single responsibility. What is the purpose of this? I will then practice that. Okay, single responsibility can means this piece of code is isolated from this, because these two will change differently depending on the requirements. Open close principle, the same. I mean, instead of trying to keeping the concept, is like, I don't really care how to explain that, but I could show you what to do in the code. I could apply that in the code, and
You
most of
mean
them are really
learning from doing it rather than just munging up the
exactly,
concepts and
exactly.
asking. Even as an interviewer, if you ask solid principles, then it would not be fair for the other person sitting, that now you have been asked solid
Mhm.
principles. I think driving it from an application perspective, that's what you mean, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I know a lot of people that they know what solid means, but they cannot apply the concept, and that's the issue. That's what I tried to say. Yeah,
Perfect.
but yeah, you got
So
a
what?
really good point.
Yeah. So what's your fourth one? Like, we have come across the third point, which is
uh,
how to organize or go about your product or your feature that you're going to develop. That's your third point.
yeah, well, we talk about dependencies, but we also we need to talk, I guess, about testing. Testing is
Yes, we
tricky
talked about a lot of
because
things in this particular point in the third one.
yeah, yeah, because I'm pretty sure that most people unfortunately don't test well the code, right?
I guarantee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still learning, by the way, I guess.
I mean,
So
I came across a startup, a big startup in India, and I was
mhm,
attending this meetup that they organized. And there I got to know that this particular startup, which is a product company in food delivery, they are not testing their like features at all. They are not into unit testing at all, which is
mhm,
surprising to me. Cut
yeah.
short, like I'll go back to you. But yeah, just wanted to share that in between.
No, no, yeah. I guess testing is the most undervaluable thing ever. Um, and I mean, and I could talk about all the variants, so TDD or any unit
Yeah,
testing integration. I mean, on, first understand the concept. What does it mean, a unit test? What does it mean, an integration test, an end-to-end test, an exhaustive test? I mean, just
right,
have those concepts already on the table.
right,
um, but yeah, good practices of testing. I mean, because most people try to just copy and paste some logic or put logic in the test, and
true,
that's not right, right? I mean, we need to keep it as much descriptive as possible. um well, uh, and I guess most people are not even familiar how they could test, or that they could um, create some targets inside of
right,
the main structure of the application, and keep every test in folders specifically for every feature. So
true.
things like that could be really helpful for a project. So testing is definitely one that must be there. And I would add maybe a fourth, but maybe it's related to the others,
Hmm.
um, uh, which is navigation. But I guess that will could be. I mean, depending of the position or the
Yeah.
seniority where you're applying, this could be tricky too. I mean, how do you
By
manage
navigation, you
navigate?
mean?
Um, uh, I guess um, it's more, well, for example, you're working in UI kit. How do
Yes.
you manage your the flow of your application between screen A,
Okay.
B, C, etc., right? How do you avoid to screen A will see screen B or know about it. So, well, the classic
Right.
question is the coordinators, right? Uh,
Right.
but for example, in Swift UI, if you're applying for a Swift UI role or so, uh, it's the question is even more trickier because
Yeah.
you well, there are some fixes already in the framework, but are not available for backward compatible yet. So it's like, okay, well, how would you manage that? And well, I guess the only thing is just reading about it and trying to explore that. If it's not in a real project, or try that by yourself. um, I guess that's important, although it's just an asterisk. I'm Because the other three or three half are really important. um,
Yes.
but I also facing that navigation sometimes could be problematic for some people
That's
to deal
true.
with. Yeah.
Completely agree to that. Even I have personally faced this problem with Swift UI, like when we were using these bottom sheets and we had to work around our way out of it because it was not working fine for us. Like we had layers
Yeah.
of sheets that we have to put into the same view, and
Hmm.
we were pretty much stuck in that scenario. And eventually, I don't think that we came up with a very good engineering solution. We just came up with a workaround for the namesake so that the things work properly. So I think
Hmm.
having, because we were also learning SwiftUI at the same time and we're building a product, right? So it
Hmm.
was that sort of journey for us. But
Yeah.
eventually, navigation in the concept itself plays a very important role, and it again, I think, attaches to from where we start, like when we print, like when we have a blueprint of the application, how the workflow works, and when you break down it even in more pieces, come to the coding part. At that point itself, you have to have a structure in your mind, that not just in your mind
Hmm.
but on the paper, that how the flow would be going like, and
Hmm.
what could be the edge cases of this particular flow, and how we can tackle them down. Maybe you do not
Yeah.
think about solving them out at the same time, but you already know where we might have certain blockers going ahead in the
Hmm.
application.
Yeah.
So one point that even I would like to add additionally after these 4 points is having a better understanding of managing the threads, which is concurrency.
Hmm.
Many people, uh, I don't think many people feel comfortable about managing threads, uh, grouping the network calls, uh, and even making sure that they are in sync, and playing around with the whole the concurrency part. I think that is very complicated, but once you have some sort of mastery over it, you feel quite comfortable attempting any such problem.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning this. Networking is the uh,
Yeah.
I guess before navigation, I guess networking is the fourth one. Yeah. Because it's like, I mean, an app without networking is like,
Day to day.
well,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's needed day to day, right? You cannot live without without the
Exactly.
networking
Yeah.
layer.
Yeah. And you need to not actually, because I guess over time people is more confident that using URL session is like the best approach for most of the applications, instead of
Right.
adding a new uh library, right, or a third party library. But yeah,
Right.
understanding what is going on between that
True.
call and then onto receiving that. And
True.
yeah, if how to avoid blocking the main thread, and all those things, or avoid performance issues, etc. So
Right.
but yeah, in general, perspective of networking is important too. Yeah.
True. True. All right, moving ahead, like I would like to talk about your managerial like experience as well, but since you have been an engineering manager, so I would like
Mhm.
to ask, like, what changed for you as an engineer versus engineering manager when you got into the position, and what made you make the change again, that you got into the software engineering part with Meta once again. So like, what was your mindset at that point of time, and how has been your experience being an engineering manager, if you have to sum it up maybe in three learnings?
Yeah, I guess, well, the first thing, the radical change is, I mean, no coding, right? um
Yeah.
and there is one reason. I mean, it's managing is not like I'm the boss, right? it's um it's changing a role, right? There is a good book called The Making of a Manager that explained in every detail for uh, new managers what to expect about that role. And in short, I mean, when you are an individual contributor, which is uh, like any developer, uh, and you only are focused on your work, right, on your tickets to implement, etc., right, you can collaborate with others, but at the end your contributions um, at the end of the year you will have to show what you did in the last year, right? So that's your job. But in the management role, you need to calibrate, collaborate, and make the team work together. And if you got a problem, any kind of problem, and could be a technical problem, could be product problem, uh, company problem, could be even personal issues, you you need to deal. I mean, you need to find ways to still on both, right, on road. Um, what I mean is that most of that will be related to um, uh, not absolutely necessary, but I consider that yes, um, coaching your team, right? Because they are focused on their job, but you need to empower them to understand what's next, right? What is the next step for their careers? Open opportunities for them in their company, because otherwise they will easily find the seal and then what's next, right? Not the roof, sorry, the roof, and they'll then will you know, face some issues like existential issues, like okay, maybe I'm done here, I will start looking for another job. So try to help them to keep the motivation, and or help them if there are issues with some I don't know, you discover that there are problems implementing a feature by design, and or some, I don't know, you need to collaborate with another team, but sometime for some reason this issue will impact other products in other features in the application or other people in the company. So you are there maybe just to help your team to clarify situations related to that, or you also are there to calibrate who will hire in your team. That's important. You, if you don't take that serious, you maybe will introduce someone that could break the you know, the stability in the team.
Team's
And
environment. Yeah.
yeah, so it's important. I mean, maybe you're not coding, but I guess what I'm always saying, I guess dealing with people is way harder than dealing with code, because there are many
I can
things.
feel I can feel you on that.
Yeah, and you know, I got that opportunity again when I started full time as iOS. That was not the plan, but someone offered me that, so to move to that role, and said okay. In this case, it was the same. I was applying for a software engineer position, and then someone asked me, "Oi, would like to be a manager?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, I don't have any background about it, but yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe the best thing to do things is just starting, right, right away." And yeah, I it was something that I really love it. However, that brings me to, well, what I'm doing right now, which is being software engineer again.
Once
Um,
again, yes.
Once again, yeah. But I mean, the short terms is that I decided to move to Meta because I guess it's an experience that, you know, can change your life forever, and
Makes sense.
it is already. So I decided, okay, and I also decided, okay, I will take this, and probably that will um, tell me if I really want to keep going as a software engineer, or
Right.
instead um, moving back to a management role, or I mean, if I plan to grow there, maybe I want to keep. I mean, to move to a management role, right? Instead of maybe
Makes sense.
being an individual contributor. So that's basically, I saw that as a win-win for me.
Makes sense to me, and I think you have seen both the worlds now. Even at Meta,
Hmm.
if someday you decide to be a manager again, then at least you have the eligibility to apply for that position internally, right? Because you have
Yeah.
been into that role before. And
Hmm.
having experience around the corner, like, I don't think that there is anything bad about that. Sometimes I have seen this thing that people do not feel really good about going into the managerial position because they are always having this dilemma of choosing between coding myself or making the team the perfect asset so that we can move ahead. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a dilemma that goes into anybody's head who has been into coding primarily.
Hmm.
And in your case, I can see that that's not that tightly coupled, that you are always there to code only. That's why you have made this move. I think, since you mentioned that it is for having this experience that could change the life forever,
Hmm.
I think yeah, that makes sense to me in that way.
Yeah. I guess also, I mean, I'm not. I wasn't coding actively when I was manager. I
Yeah.
mean, in the company, but I
Yes.
start doing YouTube to keep on shape,
Yes.
because that's another thing. I mean, it's for me like a responsibility to be on shape of coding. Maybe I'm not actively coding, but I totally understand what you're doing. The architecture, I can speak technically because I'm an engineering manager, right? It's that's my
So
part.
have you
And
ever felt as an engineering manager, Pit, that maybe this guy in my team knows more than me technically?
that's
And
absolutely
have you
true.
ever felt that sort of inferiority complex sort of thing, that I should also know this much, otherwise
Yeah.
what will my team think about me, right?
Yeah.
So has
I
there been scenarios where you have felt that pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially at the beginning, you got the imposter syndrome, because
Yeah.
you are like, okay, there are better engineers, but that's the thing. They are the
True.
engineers. They know specifically more about the architecture, and I totally okay
True.
with that, right? But I
Yes.
have other skills. There are other
Yes.
people that, if we change the roles, probably won't do like better like we are doing right now, right? Because they will hate
True.
managing, and I'm not saying that I will hate coding, but probably, but he will do better than me, right? And that's okay, no problem
Makes
about it.
sense.
So you need to find out your role, and also it's not absolutely mandatory for you to to become a manager after years, right? Um,
Right.
you could still. I mean, I hope your company has some room for technical stack, right? If
Right.
you want to, after senior, you could become staff or senior staff or whatever. So that's
Maybe
okay.
VP.
You will be
Yeah.
a model part of the company, of the project, right?
Right.
um, that's okay. That should be someone with the strong knowledge to guide the team technically. But in the other
True.
side, there should be other people, um, maybe talking more, not technically, but more about the product. Maybe as a manager, you will have more meetings, more discussions, right? And
Right.
sometimes, if you invite all the engineers, that will be, I mean, wasting their times, because most of, uh, most of the goal for them is producing,
True.
executing the code. So
True.
that's why we are creating this role, because someone needs to be aware of the
Makes
concept
sense.
of everything, but you don't have
Makes sense.
to fully understand. If you don't know something, well, there just should be someone in your team that
That
must
can take
know
care
that.
of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
Also, since when we are only a software engineer and haven't seen the other side of things, in this particular scenario, I'm talking about managerial position. We always
Mhm.
think that the manager's position is always too easy to handle. Maybe the manager's life is easy because he doesn't have to code, he doesn't have to figure out where the bug is. And we always think that they only do meetings over the day and they have nothing to do apart from this. Whereas when you become a manager yourself, you get into the shoes and you understand the reality of things. As we were talking about, managing a team is much harder than uh, I would say this, maybe some people would not agree, is much harder than solving a technical problem, right? Because with a
Yeah.
technical problem, you always know that there is a solution behind that. Maybe it will take time, but you would find the solution to it. But with
Mhm.
people, there is no one way going forward. There's no zero or one. You
Yeah.
have to make your way, to manage a
Yeah.
team and make sure that at the same time, the efficiency and the environment of the team is at top notch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you must have experienced that. And I think I'm saying this because many people think that managerial position is just about conducting meetings, telling what to do, what not to do. I think if they would not tell what to do and what not, then they would not have the clarity about on which thing they are supposed to work, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, there are a lot of jokes from some friends about that. I mean, when I was a manager, I was just spending my time with one-on-ones, and that's it. Easy money. No, I mean,
I get that.
it's way more than that. So, and yeah, you said it. Sometimes there's no right answer, and sometimes you
True.
will need to explore and do other things, and also make mistakes, right?
Makes
Or
sense.
fail and recalibrate and do things over and over. That's always what
Right.
I was doing with my team. I mean, maybe sometimes we got some meetings, but later over time that meeting is not useful anymore. Okay, let's remove it. Let's save your time. Let's move forward with this. Let's do this activity. So just try to do some variations of our
Right.
work, because otherwise we'll be monodic, and over time
True.
you will be boring of okay, one with this guy again. So just it's an art, let's say.
Managing thing is an art.
Yeah,
Being a
the art
manager
of
is an art.
managing.
True, true.
Yeah.
I completely agree to that. One thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is for the whole audience, which is currently, not currently, but would be watching us, uh, would be watching this episode. So, the question is, Pit, that what was your preparation to get into Meta as a software engineer? I think that's a big question for anyone who is preparing for, the FAANG thing. So
Hmm.
they always look out for questions, they always look out for strategies, they always look out for people with whom they can talk and get to know some aspect, or they can at least get a touch of how things work, as far as the interview processes are concerned. And as a
Hmm.
candidate, what is expected out of you, at least if they know this much, then I think half of the things can get simplified for them. So this is my question to you: what is the preparation to get into Meta as a software engineer?
Okay, can you see this green book here?
uh yes, I can see that.
This one
Yeah.
is like a uh, the source of everything is the
Cracking the
cracking
coding
the
interview,
coding
right?
interview. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, how can I say it? I took 2 years of preparation.
It
My
took two
case.
years. Okay.
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 So I guess the first rule here is that everyone will take the time according
To
to
prepare.
your skills,
Right.
your feelings, because some people are getting more nervous than others. That it's
True.
something important in the equation, right? Um, I have a friend that got an offer to Twitter in just 3 months. It was
Oh,
insane. It's
nice.
like,
Awesome.
jeez, yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. um, he moved to another job, after all the
Okay.
crazy stuff with
Okay.
Twitter, by the way. Anyway, yeah, I started, I guess also because some influence from him, by the way. But I took serious, you know, start practicing, and I have to be honest. the first times dealing with coding problems, it's really annoying. It's insane. It's like, uh, what the heck I'm doing with my life, right? Um, and the problem is because you don't solve those problems in your daily work, right?
True.
It's not like you are inverting binary trees every day, right? And that's the thing. We need to do it because it's a requirement for um, uh, passing the interviews, right? Is what it
Right.
is. So it's worthless just to complain about it because it's what it is. Okay.
Makes
So
sense.
my only conclusion to this is one, um, yeah, follow purchase the cracking the coding interview, read it, read, because I guess if you just have, you could have just that resource, and that will be enough for you to get a job at any FAANG or any big tech company. I will summarize that as that. But in my case, I also got the premium version of Lead Code, and because it was like more common to me, more comfortable to me, um, just to also um, you know um, practice and well later seeing the answers from others, because that's also really good, not exploring how other people solve the same problem like you. It's something valuable. And the thing here is that uh yeah, you should, well, there are 3 4 things that I learned. One is practice a lot. The first, start with the basic problems, with the easy ones, right? Don't jump directly to to the hard or medium. That will be so frustrating to you. So start with that. Even if the easy ones are too hard to you, that's okay. Take Try to solve the problem in 20 minutes. Set a timer, 20 minutes, because otherwise it doesn't worth the time for you is to spend 3 days figuring out that. If you cannot fix that in 20 minutes, move on and see the answer. It's okay. It's not you are not lying yourself or things like that. The thing is that you
True.
need to cover as much problems as possible. Okay, you need to get experience. Again, do you remember when we talk about seniority that is failing over and over and
Yes.
over? It's the same.
Yes.
You need to fail in problems over and over and over. You need to solve problems over and over and over. At some point, after a few months, you will start feeling some insights of, oh, okay, this problem looks like we could fix it with linked lists or with hash maps, or this is like tree problem. So you start um you know developing a skill to smell what is could be approached here.
Right.
Another thing, do a list of all the possible algorithms you could apply for a problem. So for problems in general, for example, I mentioned hash map, I mentioned linked list, reverse link, all the variations, all the three algorithms, um, the graph, etc. Just
Stacks,
implement those.
queues.
Yeah, exactly. Stacks. Yeah, implement all of them by yourself. Just implement the algorithm. Don't try to support apply it in a problem if you don't know them yet, because
Right.
those are the skills. Imagine those are the harm, the I don't know, the screwer. So are tools for you to solve the problems. If
Yeah.
you know that those exist, eventually you will understand, oh, okay, I can apply one of those here, or those are candidates for this algorithm. um,
Hmm.
but again, you will start identifying this with more, the more problems you solve, the better you will get with that. um, third, um, when you practice, probably you will be alone. But you need to find, I don't know, Robert talking Robert. I don't know how to say that in English. Um, Robert talking,
What's
I
that?
guess is. Um, it's like um, it's it's the talking alone, but like if
Okay.
someone was to you, so explaining something to Robert Duck is basically that. I
Okay.
don't have a
Like
Robert Duck with me.
assuming that somebody like it's more of like peer programming, something like that.
Exactly, that's a point. So for example, you are figuring out how to reverse a list. So it's like, okay, we want to start here. I'm seeing this linked list, so
Yes.
um, I just have this information. I just have this pointer here, and I need to return, I don't know, the smallest value in the list. So one
Mm-hmm.
technique, you know, so you
Right.
will do that, and maybe, and of course do that in English, because probably
Yes.
your interview will be in English, right? So
True.
if you suck on that, that's okay. Again, over practice. One of the fails for me was like not speaking so much. You need to speak a lot,
All
but,
right.
I mean, not like any speak. You need to think loud, right? You,
Hmm.
because the interviewer doesn't know about you, right? And he
Right.
needs to understand your thinking process. And the only way to
That
he
how you,
cannot
that how
read
you
your
are
mind.
approaching that problem. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that yeah, again, all your process. And one of the most common mistakes done in interviews is trying to find the optimal solution right away. That's terrible. That's not the way to do it. The first thing
Right.
is just having a crappy solution. The crappy solution is, it's like the easiest version of of solving the problem, right? Don't code
Okay.
it, but just try to, okay, maybe we could this two fours in a row and then find out the number. Of course,
Okay.
that's not efficient, but
Right.
it's a solution. You got that right, a solution, and that it's infinitely better than nothing. And in my
True.
experience, it's really embarrassing when the time is over and you're still figuring out the optimal solution because you spend all the time on that instead of just starting
Right.
from the beginning. And yeah, over time it's like, okay, maybe we don't need the two fours, maybe just one, because blah 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 blah. You start feeling, okay, the problem is telling you that, I don't know, the sorting is in this way, then you don't need that. So it's just
Right.
an example, but yeah, you and then you explain that to your interviewer, and then your interviewer is like, okay, this guy know what he's doing, right? You need to
Right.
prove yourself that you know what you're doing, that you're not like memorizing uh, a random problem, right?
Makes sense.
And yeah, I guess that's in general some tips for the coding problems. um, uh, yeah, in general, just again, purchase this one. If you want to pay algoexpert.com or things like that, uh, that's okay, up to you. If you feel comfortable with that, go for it. If you can afford it, that's okay. But I guess just affording this one here, or if you could
Yeah.
get it from a friend or so, will be so much, uh will be enough for you. And yeah, I guess also see if you have a friend, a real friend, not you only, to do some mock interviews or pay for some mock interviews. That's also
Right.
really good, just to and get feedback from that. The, but that's, I guess, for the only for the coding problem perspective. There are other two. I will talk just quickly. One is the system design interview. This one is tricky, especially if you're applying for a mobile position, because there's basically no resources
Resources.
available.
Yeah.
There are just one or two videos on YouTube about it, and there is, I guess, one or two. I'm sorry, medium posts around.
Right.
Um, but it's not like if you're applying for a backend position for a stack where you have a lot of information about the backend infrastructure, load balancers, and
Right.
things like
Right.
that, right? We don't have that. And for example, in a mobile interview, you don't care about it. You care about
True.
building an application, how you will
True.
structure and manage your application. Of course, you need to understand that there is a backend there, and you need to
Yeah.
consume that information. But it's
So
not
it's
going
not
to build it.
focused. It's not focused on backend at all. Like when you have the system design interview for mobile specifically, so they do not care about the backend story like at all, or they expect you to know at least some part of it.
In my experience, no. I mean, if you know about backend, that's cool. That's okay. But again,
Okay.
in a mobile interview, you will be asked about um, how to implement an application, how to design an application well, from choose an architecture, why you're choosing MBVM, why you're choosing Redux, why you're choosing whatever, right? So
Got it.
choosing something and then implementing that in your algorithm, how the data will flow through the layers onto the UI. That that's something important. And the only thing to do that, it's practicing again, practicing, more practicing. Again, you could implement again a YouTube application, a Twitter application, WhatsApp, any messenger client, etc. So, and just figure out by yourself how the data is flowing, right? Um, and with that, you could and write draw the squares, the circles, the arrows, how the data is flowing. That's the
Right.
only way to be prepared for that interview. And again, speaking louder about why you're deciding this. I guess that's my opinion, my personal opinion, that
Mm-hmm.
the hardest uh, of the interviews, because there are a lot of resources to figure out the coding problem, but the design, well, also the behavioral interview, also a lot of resources, but the design
Right.
will be specific. If your role is mobile, just practices is the only thing you could do. um, and well, the last one is uh, behavioral, which is basically a conversation with a manager, and he will talk about how do you solve conflicts in your team, how do you I mean, some achievements done in the past, in previous projects, and why are you looking. One of the question is, why are you looking for uh, a position here at X company, right? You need to
Okay.
prepare an answer for that, right? It's
Right.
not because I got free food. No. I mean, try to think about it. So
Free laundry.
yeah, free laundry, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you could answer anything, right? But and there are a lot of resources too. There is some kind of the star methodology that is basically how to explain something that someone will ask you in some kind of questions for in that kind of interview. So for example,
Okay.
I don't know, you got a conflict, or let's say someone will describe ask you for if you got conflicts before. The answer
Okay.
should be yes, because otherwise maybe you are too junior for the position. But anyway, it's like, okay, yeah, I
Oh.
got this problem with this person. The way we execute it, I don't remember the meaning of the star um, word, but you could Google it.
Okay.
And it's basically the problem, what did you do, what you did there, and then the result, right? And just practicing that. Write down all the projects you have done so far. Write down all the things that maybe you remember that, okay, I remember we got this challenge there and we fix it in this way, technically speaking, but also has a teammate, has a product. We had to, I don't know, we did this experiment, but it turns out that we got the result was worse than expected, and then we did this, blah blah blah. So share your experience
Yeah.
with that person, and that's basically it. It's, I guess, I'm not saying it's the easiest of the interviews, because it depends. We could be tricky depending on the question, but it's not about coding, or at least in my
Yeah.
experience, no coding related. Although
And I don't
I re-
think that it needs a lot of preparation as well. Like you have to be just uh, honest first of all, and have to prepare for certain use cases that you may have find out in your experience so far. Because as you were talking about star method, I just googled it, and it says like questions like give me an example of a goal you have set and how you achieved it.
exactly,
So it
basically,
talks about you, right? So if you are well aware about what you have been doing in the industry so far in your professional life, then I think
Mhm.
it should be pretty easy to manage.
Yeah, exactly. The more experience you got, yeah, the better will be
Yeah.
that interview.
Also, when you prepared for the system designs interview, I just expect that you also faced it, right? So how did you
Mhm.
prepare for that one? Since you mentioned that there are not enough resources to prepare for system design, specifically for mobile interviews. So what was your approach to prepare for it? And would you like to suggest any book to the audience?
Mm, no, that the thing. There's no book,
There's no book.
because it's. I mean, the thing is applying the architecture,
Yeah,
for iOS, for mobile in this case. So
right.
I mean, I guess I remember. I guess there is one book from uh, Objective-C.io
Okay,
that they talk. They make an application from scratch, from different architectures. That could
okay.
be a good guidance for you. But again, the point of this interview is writing down, sketching how will be the data. You won't code in this interview. You will have to
Yeah,
draw how the flow from the data, right? And it's tricky because someone could say, okay, how can we catch some set of images in this application
right.
of photos? How would you explain that in a diagram? That's the thing. You
Makes
need to,
sense.
okay, practice, and then try to explain that to someone. Mock interviews here will be uh, amazingly
A game
useful,
changer. Yeah.
just to
Also,
understand if the person is understanding. Mhm.
right. Also, when you gave the example like of the question, how would you go about caching in your application, right? So I
Mhm.
think when you talk about the solution to it, you may have uh, maybe two three solutions. How you would approach it, and then you would have to discuss that what is one of the best solutions among those, and why
Correct.
is it so.
Exactly.
So also
Yeah.
I just googled again objective-c.io, and they have this book called, I think you are talking about this one, app architecture, and
Yeah. So somewhere
this
like
must
that.
be around that topic itself.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'll
I,
pin.
I also there is, I guess there is one from Gergely. I forgot his last name. Let me Google it
No worries, you
right
can
away.
just tell me later on if you remember this. I would just pin it in the description box so that people can.
Gergely Oros. Oh, sorry, maybe I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but it's the author of The Pragmatic Engineer. Um, he has a book called Building Mobile App. Yeah, it's Building Mobile Apps at Scale.
Building mobile apps
Yeah,
and so that's.
yeah. There are 39 engineering challenges. I guess that's a great start. I mean, again,
Oh yes, there it is.
it's not um, it's not a book about system design for mobile interviews. It's not specific to that
Specifically, yes.
specifically, but there are some experience from him talking about that. And that's the point
Hmm.
of the system design, just sharing. You can see the system design like you are collaborating with the interviewer to build an application.
Right,
That's it. And you need to
right.
present that to the team, tomorrow or in a few days. You need to collaborate. So and you are the leader of the call, of the
Yes.
conversation. But the thing is that you could ask the interviewer, hey, like you said, I have these three ideas, b a b and c, because blah blah blah. What do you think? You These are the trade-offs. What would
Yeah.
you prefer to implement? So maybe he could say, okay, well, tell me you, or okay, I don't like C, but what about A and B? What would you choose, one or other, right? But you are being you're you're making the interviewer part of the conversation, and it's just not you talking like crazy. So
True.
um, but yeah, that's
Awesome.
keep an eye on that interview, because I guess in general that interview will guide you to do the others, even though
Right.
the coding problems are very specific. But
Right.
that, since that system design is kind of challenging in some way, but if you learn how to explain that effectively, the other two interviews could could be beneficial too.
Makes sense. I agree.
Mhm.
Awesome. I think we have had a great conversation so far around all the technical aspects. But now I would like to, move towards the closing of this particular episode. But before that, I would like to first ask you, Pit, that how did your YouTube journey started, and how is it going so far? And what's your plan with that? Like you shared that you love teaching, right? And when you
Mhm.
figured that teaching as a profession in Mexico is not that well paid, then you
Mhm.
had to make certain calls, right? But
Yeah.
you made your way through it, and you started off your YouTube channel
Mhm.
in last 2 years, I believe. Like it has been 2 years that you started it
Yeah.
off,
Yeah. two
even
years
more than
already.
that, maybe. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how is that going, and what is your approach with that now? Like, how do you see it?
Yeah, I guess at that time when I was preparing for my first interview at Meta, which I failed. That's why I took 2 years of preparation. Um,
Okay.
I was having some mentorship from a friend, and he told me, again, if you want to fully understand, or make sure that you understand some concept, or if you feel that you are already a leader, you need to share that knowledge with others, right? And he
True.
said, okay, that's totally true. However, some challenges for someone like me, which is someone from Mexico that speaks Spanish, and that English maybe is not so right, because believe me, I mean, I'm speaking in English, but years ago, I was like, I mean, no, no good talking, to be honest. And maybe, well, I still learning, and to improve my vocabulary, etc.
So you
But
were only speaking Spanish at that point of time, and you were just like, English
no,
is an alien language to me.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
I already speak Spanish, English since I don't know, 20, 2012.
Okay.
But the thing is that at that time was really terrible, and I was about to lose my job just because not speaking English well. Yeah, that was another
Oh,
story. I could talk later. But over time, I practice. I mean, the more practice I could speak, improve my vocabulary and speak fluent, etc. But that's one thing, right? Speaking technically with some clients, some colleagues, right? But the other story is teaching something in another language, and because you need to be uh, right, because if
true.
you have some if you don't have enough good orthography, good grammar, or you don't speak well, people won't understand what you're trying to say, or what you're trying to
True.
teach. But I said, um, I in the middle of that, I read a book called Atomic Habits, which is like the book
Okay.
that changed my life. And I
Okay, that's
decided,
nice.
okay, I was thinking to making some posts on Medium, but I got a lot of friction. I don't know. I mean, writing down for me wasn't like super fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have complaints about it, but it's just me. And I said, um, it wouldn't be better to break that friction. And I thought, what about YouTube? I
Yeah.
mean, I have to speak right in front of a camera. Well, that was at the beginning. And reading this book, it was like, okay, your work maybe will be crap at the beginning, but over time it will be getting better and better. And I said, okay,
Right.
let's do it and let's see what happened. And then I started my first video with a literally new setup. But I just started talking about, I guess, the basic of Swift UI and things like that. And I noticed the first episode that I published on November 30th of 2020.
We remember the
By
date
the way,
as well. Okay.
yeah, and yeah, I remember also, taking some times because the pandemic, and I was at home all the
Right.
time, and I said,
Right.
okay, it's maybe a good opportunity to think about other things, not the pandemic, and keep
Makes
focus
sense.
on, keep busy. Um, and yeah, I saw that first episode some time ago, and then compare with my vocabulary so far, it's like, oh my god, I noticed the difference, and it's because I've been practicing explaining to others over time. I made mistakes and adjust those mistakes thanks to the feedback of the people, and the goal was at the beginning, okay, let's share what I have learned so far.
Right.
And I, that that brought me in some position to be always prepared for interviews because I'm always
Ooh.
aware of what are the news of Swift, of iOS and
Yes.
everything. So I don't, to be honest, if I had to do an interview right now, I can do it
You are
because
prepared
I'm
already.
already aware. And if there is something that I don't know, that's okay for me because I will use that to make another video.
Makes
So
sense.
I took that as an opportunity to me to keep on shape. Also, I thanks to that I also got the opportunity with the management role, and I keep making videos for me as an excuse to keep coding, right? Because I wasn't coding so
Nice.
much in my management role, right?
Yes.
But and then I got the best of the two worlds, learning some soft skills from one side and keep coding at my own pace from the other, but also
Yep.
learning how they are doing the architecture and then applying those concepts to myself and try to teach it
Mm.
for other. So yeah, and yeah, over time I decided, yeah, to improving how to make those videos better for people, starting focuses of quality, because at the beginning was quantity. If you want to start
True.
at YouTube or Medium
It's all about
post, or
quantity first.
it's quantity. It doesn't matter if your grammar is okay. I mean, I saw one guy called Ali Abdal, I guess. Is one
Ali
of
Abdal.
sort
Okay.
of
Yes.
Ali
I
Abdal.
watched
Yeah,
his
yeah.
video.
That's a guy also talking about quantity over quality, and that's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and it's like the same. It's like if you're preparing for a marathon, you won't do it great at the beginning. You just
True.
will run a few meters, and then you
Miles.
will have
Yeah.
to go back miles. Yeah.
Right.
Um, but over time you will do it better and better and better, and after 1 year you will see your chart, like a big improvement compared with
True.
yourself not doing anything over 1 year. um yeah, I guess we are right now over 5K subscribers, and I'm not
That's
sure about
amazing.
the amount uh of views. Yeah, and yeah, I really great so far. Of course, have been so much challenges to maintain this channel because, again, I moved to another country. That's a one thing. Also,
Yes.
during that time, I had a kid, my first son, and then my daughter born too, and well, now I'm father of two kids. That's
Awesome.
getting fun. um, then I need to, okay, find ways to manage this, because that's a fact from life. You won't have time. You will never have time for doing things,
You will
no
never
matter
have
what
time.
you're doing. Yeah, you will be busy all the time because the adult life is like that. But then, if you want
True.
to do something, you need to find ways
You
to
will
make
always
that
find the
happen.
time to do it. If you really
Exactly.
want to do it, then you will find out the time.
Yeah. That's a true fact. And for me, it was like at the beginning was like working overnight to do this. But then I start feeling super tired next day. I was feeling fatigue because I mean, maybe years ago in my 20s, it was
Right.
okay to me to do it, but not anymore. I need to, and also I learned later that I need to take care of my sleep, right?
Right.
Because, working overnight and then waking too early is like not a good thing to do, you know? And then I decided, okay, and what about if I uh, go early, work early in the morning? And then
Yeah.
I started working at 5 a.m. along with the
AM.
interview preparation, and then working in my regular job, and then
Oh my
in
God.
the afternoon taking care of the kids. So it was
You're a
kind
real
of
hustler
crazy.
then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have many things to do,
Okay.
but the thing is
Awesome,
that
man.
okay, I cannot. Oh, thank you. I cannot work hours of YouTube. I just have a few minutes over in the day. So let's
Yeah.
make them productive, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing right now. For example, I'm taking longer to finish a TCA series, and I know
Oh,
there are a lot of things already happened. I need to update a few things, but okay, it's my own pace. I'm sorry
yes.
if I mean, I'm doing this
Because
for
that's your channel, you can decide your own pace, and you are doing it
exactly.
for the sake of, your passion that you have for
Uh,
teaching.
yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, that motivation also helped me to move forward. But at the same
Right.
time, and a true fact is that over time you will lose the first inspiration when you are making a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. It's
That
like,
inner
hey,
motivation, I
amazing.
would say. Yeah.
Yeah, but after the next 3, 4, 5 videos, when you realize that editing a video is really tedious, you will start feeling like, okay, what I'm doing. But there is some learning curve, and once you need to keep going. And once you're
Right.
past that learning curve, you could start feeling, okay, this is what it is. This is my capacity, and that's it. And just as a final mention note about here is, uh, I also realized my own potential. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean is that I know there are other great YouTubers out there talking
Mm-hmm.
in the just community, like you, for example. But
Mm-hmm.
you have your own schedule, right? You have your
Right.
own situations, right? You maybe
True.
can work more than me in YouTube, but that's okay because it is
Right.
you. This is your capacity. My capacity
Right.
is this, right? And
True. And
I
it's not a
stopped
competition at the end of the day, right?
exactly, and not only YouTube in general. So I'm
In
stopped
general.
competing with other. I'm competing with
Right.
myself. If I'm
Hmm.
better than me yesterday, that's good. It's a good improvement. But I won't, for example, I won't compare with my friend that took 3 months to get a job
Right.
in a fine company, for example, because their circumstances are different from my circumstances.
Exactly.
So
Otherwise, you would get depressed. Ki, how can that person prepare in 3 months and I took 2 years, right?
yeah,
That will make you feel like, why so in my case?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that brings you a lot of other issues like imposter syndrome,
True.
etc. And it's like, no, it's my own pace. It's what I'm
Exactly.
doing. Don't stop working. Keep going, and maybe. And one thing is, forget about the numbers. The numbers
Right.
doesn't care. So the point is making good content, the best content possible for you, right?
Right.
The numbers will come over time, right? And the truth is
Long
that
term game.
nobody will get rich just making videos on YouTube. Maybe Mr. Beast,
Exactly.
but those guys are making other business, and YouTube is just
Yes.
like a marketing tool for them, right? So
They are making videos based on what public want to watch,
exactly.
not based on what they want to share, right? Whereas if we talk about us, like we technical creators, we focus
Hmm.
majorly on what we want to create first,
Hmm.
what we think can provide value to others. And I think that's a completely different game altogether. If we talk about, like we were mentioning, Mr. Beast and versus YouTubers like us who are in the tech domain,
Hmm.
we do it for our like kick. We want to do it, and they do it because they want to hit certain numbers and they are scaling their business out of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, this has been my journey.
awesome. Awesome. So, what are your plans now, Pit? Since you have been now working with one of the best companies in the world, no doubt, and you have a great YouTube channel on which you bring up a lot of good content. You have two lovely kids. You are married, and everything is sorted out in those aspects as well. Now, what is Pit's plan going forward? In say next 1 or 2 years, like we at least prepare for next 1 year, I would say. So
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about that? How do you see it?
Um, yeah, right now, for example, we're deciding if we would like to keep living in the Bay Area, for example, because it's really expensive, really expensive.
I've
Yeah,
heard a lot of
if,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, it's insane, especially for people like me. Maybe if you are single, you will be good, but the problem
Oh, right.
is that yeah, with family, it's getting
Yes,
complicated because there are other expenses that are uh, cannot be afforded as easy as before.
I get
And
it.
well, you need to you need to think about it also,
True.
that's one thing. I'm just thinking with my personal life. Speaking of my journey as a software engineer or in my job, well, let's see. I mean, maybe I may be considering to move to management role again, because I don't know, I love it. I love to talk with people. um
Nice.
yeah, well, I love to help people to improve their
Progress.
self,
Yeah.
to
Right.
progress. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Like I found things that I could share with others. Actually, later I
Right.
could make up some videos about that. Not related
Sharing your
to
story
code.
about how
Yeah,
how you find out that managerial is the thing for you eventually,
yeah.
and that's awesome.
That
That's awesome.
yeah. and and I guess as a well, speaking of the YouTube content, I guess right now I would like just some stability, because
Yeah.
those years have been super crazy.
Yeah.
um but yeah, I guess I would like to explore a few other things that i I definitely would like to know more about it. Let's say, for example, um manage push notifications, for example, or
Yes.
create creating other kind of tools, applications for the software development in iOS.
Right.
But also, I also very interested on, and this is a little spoiler.
Uh-huh.
I'm preparing a conference talk pretty soon.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I wanted just to participate in some conferences. I'm not sure if I will have this ready for by the time of those conferences, for example, NS Spain, but probably for
Okay,
sure, yeah, there are always conferences where I could prepare
that's true.
something.
That goes
But
all
it's
over
but
the area.
Mhm. But it's something. I mean, I love Swift, but what I love is, like, I would like to understand more how it works under the hood. I mean, if we are
Right.
using some component there, um, I
And
would like to
how that
understand,
components has been built.
yeah, and how the compiler is working. Um,
Right.
it's something. I mean, one of my dreams, and I hope if you see this, if you watch this in many years later, one of my dreams is to contribute to Swift open source project.
I think that's
I would
that's
like to
the
do
senior engineer inside you that is talking right now. I mean,
it.
because
Yeah.
you when you find out that you have almost covered most of the core principles or the topics that you can possibly do, the only
Mhm.
thing left now is to figure out whatever I have learned so far, how does that work behind the scene, right? And I
Mhm.
think you are
Mhm.
talking about that, so that makes me feel like uh, I mean, I would really appreciate that, because that's how somebody can expand their horizons after a certain point. Because some
Yeah.
people is stuck at that point where they feel like, okay, now we have had this much of experience, we know this is this. Now how should we go about keep growing ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think you have a beautiful answer for the same, getting into the depth of what you have been playing around so far.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's a feature. Let's see how it
That's
goes.
awesome. That's amazing. Well, I would now like to take your last thoughts of the episode, Pit. I think this has been one of the best episodes that I've done personally. To be very honest, I would
Thank you.
not cut this line anywhere. I will just publish it the way I have said it.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to take your last thoughts that you would like to share with the audience in this episode. The audience of this episode would be more or less like a beginner to intermediate developer audience. So, what is
Mhm.
your message to them?
Sure. I guess at that level, most people could be afraid of the imposter syndrome because they can see others that already have strong skills of coding, or they speak publicly and they don't know what to do with their lives, right? Well, the first thing I will suggest for them is reading this book.
Own your greatness. Awesome.
Yeah, it talks about how to manage the imposter syndrome. The imposter syndrome will be with you forever, but the thing
Forever.
is, you need to manage it, right?
Yeah.
You need to
I
manage
think
it because
I think I was talking to one of my guests, and he said that if you do not have imposter syndrome, then you should worry.
exactly, yeah, because yeah, you could die if you don't have
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah,
true.
it's so some kind of self protection. I don't know how to call it, but yeah,
I
the
get you.
point, if you want to grow in your career, no matter what you're doing,
Yes.
is something what like I already mentioned this. Stop comparing with others,
Right.
but start working for you today, right? And start from the most smallest piece possible. If you don't know how to do it, if you would like to learn about more about AI,
Yeah.
okay, open a YouTube channel. I mean, open YouTube and watch a video, or start doing something about that, one step at a time,
Right.
to make you closer to that goal. Okay, and
Hmm.
work every day. Learn this. You will always have things to do, and I'm pretty sure I love myself thinking that I was too busy when I was in my 20s, when I was 20 years old. But
Okay.
now I'm extremely busy. I always will get busier and busier and busier over time.
Yeah.
When you grow up, maybe you will get married, maybe you will have kids, maybe
Right.
you don't, but that's okay. But anyway, you will have responsibilities. You will have
True.
things to do all the time. That will be
Right.
part of your life. So, and maybe you will have to work. Maybe your job is not. I mean, you want to do something else. You will have to find out how to manage that with some amount of time, and calibrate that. Maybe at the beginning you will, like me, you will find overnight it's not working fine for you. Maybe early in the morning is better, and
Right.
you need to keep going, learning stuff. So if you are not enough, for example, understanding the backend perspective, uh, find out, Google it. What are the best resources? Don't start reading a book cover to cover, because that may be not
True.
the most practical way to do. Start doing things.
Makes sense.
Doing things by yourself are more effective than just reading a book. Reading is good, but don't read too much in the way to just reading and not doing anything. It's like Sheldon Cooper learning how to swim on YouTube or in a book, right? That doesn't care. You will have
True.
years of experience swimming, theoretically, but if you don't swim in a pool, what is the point, right? So you need
That's the
to
point.
jump in the pool, and then learning how to swim there. That's the
Right.
thing I would like to share with you. And one other book that changed my life was Atomic Habits. Maybe it's pretty common already, but that book helped me to create some framework for me to do the things I'm doing. Maybe this framework is not compatible with you, but you will find your own framework at your own pace,
Right.
and that's okay. Eventually, you will be uh, a better version of yourself. And
Very
um,
true.
and yeah, some thoughts
Awesome.
for you, everyone.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pit, for joining me today on this episode. I think I got to learn a lot of things from you today personally. We discussed a lot of technical thing, but also there was always a philosophical side to it, which I really enjoyed. We always enjoy technical conversations, but when it get associated with something which you can resonate with, I think that's what I find out in this conversation, and I completely enjoyed this conversation of almost 2 hours. It's been. I
Yeah.
hope I hope it was the same for you. You enjoyed talking and having this conversation around all the topics broadly we talked about. For the audience, guys, if you like this episode, please give it a big thumbs up, and I'll pin Pitt's YouTube channel and Twitter in the description box. Please go follow him on Twitter, subscribe his channel. He has been putting a lot of great content on his YouTube, and I think he's quite active on Twitter as well. He has two Twitter user handles. Even I was not sure in the very first place which one is the most active one, so I had to find out my way. But now
Yeah.
I know that he uses Swift and Tips. That is the most active one. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Safe and tips.
So please feel free to follow Pitt on Twitter. And again, I would say subscribe to him on YouTube. With that said, thank you so much for watching us till here. I think you must have got a lot of things to learn from this if you have actually watched this whole episode. Whatever you like, you can comment in the comment section down below about that. And if you feel like you have some questions for me or for Pitt, you can just reach out to us on Twitter or on our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much once again. See you in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye bye.